At precisely 7:12 on a calm Tuesday morning, I stepped into my favorite coffee shop expecting nothing more than my regular cup of coffee. Instead, I found myself standing at the counter as the cashier apologized for the third time. Every credit card in my wallet had been declined. The people waiting behind me sighed with impatience, and I felt the kind of humiliation every older person dreads. Without a word, I left the coffee on the counter, walked outside, and called my son. What he confessed during that phone call turned my world upside down. I thought I understood my family. Brian quietly explained that he and his wife Melissa had canceled all my credit cards because they felt I was too old to handle my own money. Before I could say anything, Melissa took the phone and casually remarked that if I needed cash, I should check with them first before making any purchases. I was 70 years old. I had spent 4 decades working as a civil engineer overseeing multi-million-dollar projects and had never missed a single payment in my life. Yet suddenly my own family had decided I could no longer be trusted with my own finances. I said nothing, thanked them, and drove straight to my bank. The bank manager, Susan Reynolds, had known me for many years. The moment she opened my account, her face changed. My mailing address had been updated to Brian's house, my phone number had been replaced with his, and my email now belonged to Melissa. Replacement credit cards had already been sent to their address after my originals were canceled. I had never authorized any of these changes. Susan immediately reached out to the fraud department, and together we discovered something even more alarming. Over the past 8 months, my online banking passwords had been altered, fraud alerts redirected to Brian's phone, spending limits quietly reduced, and electronic authorization forms added to my account bearing signatures that looked like mine, but had never been written by me. That evening, I sat alone staring at a photograph of my late wife, Linda. She always believed that when something no longer made sense, the first step was to understand it rather than react with emotion. Following her wisdom, I chose not to confront Brian right away. Instead, I visited my longtime attorney, Daniel Mercer, carrying every document the bank had provided. After examining the papers, he immediately spotted several authorization forms claiming legal meetings had occurred in his office, meetings that had never taken place. Then he asked one question that made my stomach tighten. Had anyone recently mentioned assisted living? I instantly recalled Melissa casually bringing up retirement communities several times during family dinners. Daniel warned me that gaining financial control often came before attempts to legally challenge an older person's decision-making ability. Rather than confronting them, Daniel suggested I remain silent while we gathered evidence. For the next several weeks, I behaved exactly as they expected. Every conversation became proof. Brian wanted me to seek permission before making bigger purchases. Melissa repeatedly questioned whether I remembered appointments, medications, or simple everyday tasks. Friends even mentioned that Brian had told them I would probably sell my house before winter, even though I had never discussed moving with anyone. Bit by bit, the full picture emerged. No one had stolen my money, they were quietly seizing control of my life. Working with Daniel, an elder law specialist, and the bank's fraud team, we built a complete timeline showing every password change, address update, canceled card, redirected alert, and unauthorized account modification. Instead of plotting revenge, I prepared a new estate plan to safeguard my independence. If I ever truly became unable to manage my affairs, only independent doctors and a professional fiduciary could approve changes. No single family member would ever again control my finances or my home. When everything was in place, I invited Brian and Melissa to Sunday dinner. They arrived with smiles, convinced I had finally accepted their plan. What they did not expect was to find my attorneys, the bank manager, and the fraud investigator seated at the table with me. After dinner, I placed a thick binder in front of them and quietly began turning the pages. Every document exposed another decision they had made without my knowledge: the redirected alerts, the canceled cards, the changed address, the forged authorizations. No arguments were necessary because the paperwork spoke clearly. At first, Melissa claimed everything had been done to protect me, but the fraud investigator calmly explained that helping someone never meant removing their knowledge or consent. Brian gradually realized he had relied on assumptions instead of asking questions. When the elder law attorney asked him when he first believed I was incapable of managing my own life, he admitted it started after my wife passed away. Small mistakes like forgetting a library book or asking for help with online banking had slowly convinced him that I needed someone else to make decisions for me. Looking back, he finally understood those moments were not signs of incompetence, they were simply part of being human. I walked into the next room and returned with an old family photo album, opening it to a picture of Brian as a young boy. I reminded him of the many nights we had spent solving problems together. Then I asked the only question that truly mattered. When did you decide I deserved less patience than I gave you while you were growing up? Tears filled his eyes because he had no answer. He apologized, admitting he thought he was protecting me, but instead he had taken away my dignity. Melissa also apologized, explaining that past experiences with an elderly relative had led her to believe taking control early was always the safest option. She realized too late that she had mistaken preparation for permission. I accepted their apologies, but I also explained that trust without respect eventually turns into control. Daniel then presented my new estate plan, showing that every safeguard protected not only me but the entire family from future misunderstandings. I even announced the creation of a community program teaching older adults about online banking, fraud prevention, and financial independence, so others would never surrender complete control simply because they felt embarrassed asking for help. Healing did not happen overnight, but it did happen. Brian stopped making decisions for me and started asking simple questions instead. Melissa admitted her mistakes without expecting immediate forgiveness. Slowly, our family rebuilt itself on honesty rather than silent assumptions. Almost 1 year later, I returned to the same coffee shop where everything had begun. I ordered the same cup of coffee, inserted my credit card, and heard the approval beep I had waited months to hear. Brian stood beside me and offered to pay, but I smiled, slipped my card back into my wallet, and gently told him I had it covered. This time, he simply nodded, because he finally understood the difference between helping someone and taking away their choices. That little cup of coffee cost less than $3, but it revealed a truth far more valuable than money. Growing older should never mean surrendering your voice. Accepting help should never require giving up your independence. Real love asks permission, respects boundaries, and stands beside the people it cares about instead of quietly taking control. Sometimes the greatest victory is not proving someone wrong. It is reminding the people you love that dignity, trust, and respect are worth protecting for a lifetime.